Leviathan, the beast beneath the deep. There is a place on this earth where the ocean refuses to move. No waves. No wind. No sound. Ancient sailors had a name for it. The sleeping sea. And every ship that entered was never seen again. No wreckage. No bodies. No answers. Only whispers drifted back with the tide, whispers that said something breathed beneath those waters. Something that had been alive before the first king was crowned. Before the Tower of Babel reached the sky. Before nations learned the meaning of war. The ancient prophets wrote about it. Job described it. Isaiah feared it. A creature with scales harder than hammered bronze. Eyes that burned like sunrise over open water. Breath that carried smoke and living fire. A body so vast it could darken the horizon. Its name? Leviathan. And for thousands of years, every wise man, every sailor, every king agreed on one thing. Leave it alone. Then came Eliab. A young explorer. Brilliant. Fearless. And just proud enough to be dangerous. When he discovered a forgotten scroll buried inside a collapsed temple, a scroll describing the exact location of Leviathan's resting place, every person he trusted begged him to burn it. His teacher. His father. His crew. Burn it. Instead, he built a ship. Before the ship set sail, Eliab visited the oldest living prophet on the coast. The man had not spoken in 3 years. When Eliab unrolled the scroll before him, the prophet stared at it for a long moment. Then he picked it up and dropped it directly into the fire. You seek the creature God himself chained beneath the water, the old man said. The one thing in all creation that cannot be owned. Cannot be studied. Cannot be conquered. Eliab smiled. It is legend. A story told to frighten children. The prophet said nothing. He simply reached beneath his table and placed an enormous shell on the surface between them. Eliab leaned forward. Deep inside the shell were claw marks, each one wider than a man's arm. No fisherman made those, the prophet whispered. He looked directly into Eliab's eyes. When the sea becomes perfectly still, do not look down. That warning should have ended the voyage before it began. But greed has a way of silencing wisdom. Eliab sailed at sunrise. 3 weeks into the journey, the ocean changed. Not suddenly. Gradually. The way a nightmare creeps in before you realize you're asleep. First, the waves slowed. Then stopped entirely. The wind vanished next, sails hanging limp in dead air. Then the birds disappeared. Every last one. As if the sky itself had been emptied. The water around the ship became a mirror. Perfect. Black. Still. And beneath that mirror, shadows moved. Long shadows. Slow shadows. Shapes far too large to be whales, moving in wide circles beneath the hull. The crew stopped talking. At midnight, something bumped the bottom of the ship. Once. A long pause. Twice. Then silence. By morning, one sailor was missing. No scream had been heard. No splash. Only wet footprints on the deck, leading from his hammock to the edge of the railing. And then nothing. On the 4th night in the sleeping sea, the water began to glow. Not moonlight. Not bioluminescence. Something else. A deep, cold blue light rising from far below, as if the bottom of the ocean had caught fire. The sailors gathered at the rails, drawn by curiosity the way moths are drawn to flame. They leaned over. They looked down. And then they saw them. 2 eyes. Each one larger than the ship's entire deck. Golden. Ancient. Unblinking. Staring upward through fathoms of dark water with an intelligence that made every man feel suddenly, profoundly small. The eyes did not move. They simply watched. Then the crew felt it, before they heard it, before they saw it. The ocean around the ship began to rise. Not from waves. From something beneath the surface. Breathing. The sea exploded upward. Not in waves, in a wall of black water that reached the clouds. The ship tilted nearly vertical. Men slid across the deck, grabbing ropes, screaming. And from the chaos of white foam and thunder, it rose. Leviathan. Its body emerged in sections, each one larger than the last, as if the ocean were slowly giving birth to a living mountain. First the horns, curving like ancient trees stripped of bark. Then the skull, a cathedral of bone and scale. Then the neck, massive as a cliff face, draped in armor-black plates that no human weapon had ever scratched. Its jaws opened. Row upon row of iron-colored teeth. Each one the size of a standing stone. Steam poured between them. When it roared, the clouds scattered. The sailors did not run. They simply collapsed, overwhelmed by the presence of something so far beyond them that their minds refused to process it properly. Against Leviathan, they were not warriors. They were not explorers. They were not even prey. They were nothing. Leviathan did not attack. Not immediately. It circled slowly, deliberately, its body displacing water in waves that pushed the ship like a toy. Then it stopped. Faced the vessel directly. And inhaled. The sound was like a mountain being hollowed. The ocean itself seemed to pull inward, drawn toward the creature's chest like water down a drain. Then it exhaled. A column of fire and smoke erupted across the surface of the sea. The water boiled. Steam swallowed everything. The ship's wooden hull began to crack and shriek. Sails caught fire and disintegrated. The smell of burning salt filled every man's lungs. But the fire passed over them. Not because they were lucky. Because Leviathan had aimed to miss. This was not a hunt. This was a warning. Turn back. This is the last warning you will receive. As Leviathan circled the burning ship, the sky cracked open. Not with thunder. With light. Chains, enormous, radiant, blazing with an energy that had no earthly name, descended from the clouds like falling rivers. Each link glowed white gold, too bright to look at directly. They wrapped around Leviathan's body. Not to imprison it. Not to drag it down. But to remind it. Leviathan went still. Its massive head rose slowly toward the heavens. And it did not fight. It bowed. Because the chains were not sent by any army. Not by any king or prophet or empire. They carried the authority of the only voice in all of creation that Leviathan had ever obeyed. The voice of the one who made it. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook? Will it speak soft words to you? Will it make a covenant with you? The creature that could shatter mountains with its tail, submitted. Because true power always recognizes its source. As the chains held Leviathan still and the boiling waters began to cool and clear, Eliab looked over the ruined railing of his ship. And saw something that broke his mind. Far below, beneath hundreds of feet of dark water, lay a city. Not ruins of a small village. A civilization. Towers that dwarfed any structure ever built by human hands. Temples plated in gold that still gleamed after ages beneath the sea. Statues carved from black stone, each one larger than a mountain. Streets. Plazas. Palaces. An entire world swallowed by the ocean long before the oldest human civilization carved its first letter. Eliab stared. And understanding arrived like a cold blade. Leviathan had not been guarding treasure. It had been guarding knowledge. Secrets that had been buried on purpose. Truths about what came before, what humanity had once been, what it had built, and what catastrophic error had brought heaven's judgment down upon it. Secrets that God, in his mercy, had decided the world was not yet ready to know. Eliab had seen the chains, seen the creature bow, and still. He gave the order. Fire the harpoons. His remaining crew stared at him in disbelief. Fire them. The harpoons launched 6 of them, from 6 different positions. They struck Leviathan's scales and fell away like toothpicks thrown at a castle wall. Not one left a mark. Leviathan turned its head, slowly, and looked at Eliab directly. Then its tail rose out of the water unhurried, almost lazy, and came down. The ship did not crack. It ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next the ocean was full of splinters and rope and the remnants of sails. Men scattered in every direction. Some did not surface. Eliab clung to a single beam of floating timber. Alone. Bleeding. Surrounded by the wreckage of his pride. Then Leviathan surfaced beside him. Its eye, that vast, golden, ancient eye, stopped inches from his face. He could see his own reflection in it. Small. Broken. Insignificant. The eye watched him for a long moment. Then, Leviathan descended. Silently. Without violence. Without contempt. It simply left. Mercy had been shown. Not because Eliab had earned it. Not because he deserved it. But because the creature had not come to satisfy his pride. It had come to answer to a higher authority. And that authority had not yet called for his end. Eliab came home alone. No crew. No ship. No proof. He told his story once, to a room full of merchants and scholars, and watched them laugh. He never told it again. But he didn't stop watching. Every evening for the rest of his life, Eliab climbed the cliff above his village and sat at the edge facing the sea. Not searching for glory anymore. Not searching for secrets. Just watching. Because he knew something the laughing scholars did not. Leviathan had not been defeated. Had not been captured. Had not been slain. It was still down there. Still circling in the deepest trenches of the ocean. Still guarding what humanity was never meant to find. Still obeying the only voice it had ever answered to. And sometimes, on nights when the sea turned perfectly still and the stars reflected like fire on the water, Eliab would hear it. A sound from far below. Low. Ancient. Patient. A sound that said, I am still here. I have always been here. And I will rise again on the day appointed by heaven alone. Fishermen in the village began reporting strange things. Ships missing on calm nights. Lights beneath the water. A roar that shook their windows and had no earthly source. They came to Eliab asking for answers. He gave them only one. When the sea goes perfectly still, do not look down. Leviathan was never defeated. Never captured. Never slain. Even now, it waits in the deepest trenches of the ocean. Where no sunlight can reach. And where no man dares to venture. The question isn't whether Leviathan will rise again. The question is, when? If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't let the adventure end here. Leave a like to support the channel. Subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next journey into ancient myths, forgotten legends, and biblical mysteries. And share this story with someone who loves epic tales of mystery and adventure. Because the next legend we're uncovering is even darker, even more terrifying. And it may change everything you thought you knew. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon. Because some legends never die.